Good evening and welcome to The Right Side, the show where we talk about today's news, views, trends, and opinions from an admittedly conservative perspective. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and this evening we have a special treat. A lot of times our viewers are concerned about what's going to happen to our country. The conservative movement is more seasoned in our age in many cases, but this evening we've got a couple of guys that we're going to be talking to that have founded an organization called Golden State Teenage Conservatives. Sam Wolf and Michael Gofman have joined us in the studio tonight. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for giving us hope that conservative ideals might actually last into the next generation.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit, first of all, about who you are, how you found out you're conservative, if your parents and your teachers know, or if now you're going to be outed. What's going to happen? Sam, we'll start with you.
So it's actually interesting. Most people are very confused by me because I come from an extraordinarily liberal Jewish Bay Area family. My parents are both very liberal. My sister is as far left as you get. And so people are surprised that I sort of turned out the way I am, but I often tell them it's because I'm from a liberal family that I'm a conservative, because I've had to grow up in the milieu of liberalism and I've experienced it enough to know that it's wrong. And I think that honestly just taking the time to sort of think for myself on the issues and not just listening to the family forced me to think about issues logically and with facts, and facts tend to be on the side of conservatives, so that's how I turned out.
So you're one of those crazy people. See, the same thing happened to me.
Right.
I started thinking for myself, and that screwed up everything.
Yeah.
Right? You actually
Liberals
read
don't
and
really
understand.
like dissenting opinion. But.
Yeah. So tell me about that, though. I mean, was there a specific topic? Was there a specific issue that you got very interested in that all of a sudden made you question, is this reality that I live in really reality, or is there something different?
There's sort of two major issues. One is Israel, and the other is Reaganomics, economics. So in 8th grade, we had a history project investigating U.S. presidents, and I had to look up Reagan. So I found out what the idea of supply-side economics was and what Reaganomics was. And I just remember thinking about how much it made sense, how cutting taxes and growing freedom actually expands the economy. And so I just sort of thought, like, well, this makes a lot of sense. What if there's some other things that make sense? So I started reading philosophers. I read John Locke, Adam Smith, and I was exposed to the ideas of individualism, of free market economics, and I sort of just spiraled down a rabbit hole. And the other issue for me, it's a big issue for me because I'm Jewish, is pro-Israel. So I've been involved in a lot of Zionist organizations, and I sort of experienced the intolerance on a lot of the leftism for Israel. And as a Jew, it's such a passionate thing for me that I realized that maybe the ideas of tolerance and diversity that the leftists sort of espouse are not actually the way they are if they can be this hateful towards Israel, which is such a great country.
Yeah. And so now you're ruined forever.
Yeah. I'm gone for.
Well, so what about you, Michael? Is your journey different, the same?
Mine's actually pretty different than that. I grew up in a moderately conservative family, moderately too conservative, and they're immigrants from the former Soviet Union. So they knew what it was like to grow up under socialism, and they didn't like it. A lot of people there apparently didn't like it. Yeah. And they're doing everything they could. They tried to raise a family that would support the same things they did, which is making sure that what happened there never would happen here.
And so it's interesting because I've been to a lot of Tea Party rallies and other places where conservatives hang out, and you find a lot of immigrants from Slavic countries that are there, and they're the vocal ones. They're the ones yelling and screaming about, look, I left this crap, and I left to escape, and now we're moving down that same road here. This is not what I signed up for.
I think that's a sentiment very common among many former Soviet Union immigrant families. And I think the point where I realized I was conservative was at some point during middle school when I started seeing this whole idea of that we need to be forced to share things. Oh, yeah. And this was probably around the same time we were learning about what the Soviet Union was. And I was like, wait a minute, isn't that what was going on there? Isn't that exactly what we were fighting against? Why is this our new ideal? Shouldn't we be fighting for individual rights and in the individual's right to prosper versus shared suffering?
Right. And so, but then you guys took it a step further, conservative, and I know you're careful to clarify that you're moderate to conservative. So I'm curious as to how you're defining conservatism or being moderate. So we can start with you, Sam.
I mean, the way I look at it, it's sort of, I don't see issues necessarily as Republican versus Democrat or left versus right, but in general, I see most issues can be taken from an individual versus the collective. It's freedom versus the government. And I think that in general, people have natural rights, life, liberty, property, and it's the government's role to protect them. And when people are left alone to do as they please, to control their own destiny, that's when prosperity and true happiness can come about. And so I basically support being able to make the own choices that affect my life. And I think that main principle of being able to control your own destiny and your natural rights can sort of be the defining principle of conservatism. And all the other issues can be taken off of that.
And you also used the definition even before the show of more of a classical liberal definition before the word liberal meant you can do anything you want to do as long as the government allows you to do it.
So they've sort of, the liberals have stolen that term, but the original classical liberals, you look at Frederick Bastiat, John Locke, Ludwig von Mises. It's this school of economics and political philosophy that means that the government should be small and freedom should be big. And that's what classical true liberalism is, which was a response to the monarchies in England and Europe. It's because the Enlightenment is classical liberalism. And most conservatives and modern-day libertarians are the heirs to the classical liberalism. And the modern-day liberals, really, I like to use the term progressive because they're not liberal. You know, they support growing government, they support not allowing you to choose things, and these ideas that are not very liberal at all, but they basically support big government, which is not a liberal thing.
Right. Okay. And what about you, Michael? How do you articulate your belief system?
Well, the reason, by the way, that I started out by saying that I try not to name myself any particular, to align myself with any particular ideology is because I'm against the idea that just because someone says you should believe in something, you should believe it. Just because you agree with someone on most things doesn't mean you need to agree with them on everything, which is...
I agree with you on that, actually,
So, yeah, to me, my conservatism has to do with economic theory, with individual rights economically, but also with freedom and liberty, the individual's rights on social issues, on and everything. I think the more freedom we have, the more economically secure we'll be, the more secure we'll be, and the more people will be allowed to enjoy life. Because if we don't care about freedom and liberty, we can just go to jails. We're fed, we have health, we have room. So to me, my conservatism comes from a love of freedom and liberty.
Okay, excellent. And so, again, you guys give hope, I think, to the more seasoned generations that you're articulate, you're able to share your views in a way that I don't find offensive, and if other people do, whatever. But you guys have taken it a step further in that you've actually worked on collecting more like-minded individuals, and you started Golden State Teenage Conservatives. What is that? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do?
Sure. So I got the idea when I was at a pro-Israel convention in Washington, D.C. with AIPAC. And I befriended someone there who later turned out to be the president of the High School Democrats of America. And he was telling me about...
High School Democrats of America, not High School Democratic Socialists of America.
Right.
You know, basically the same thing.
Okay.
But he was telling me about how he has this great national framework to get into if he wants to help his cause out. And I was thinking, wow, I'm sure there must be a similar thing for Republicans. I'm going to go, when I get home, get online, check it out, and get involved. And I got home and found an old, out-of-date infrastructure. Nothing seemed to work. And I decided to, look up what's going on in California. And everything I found from national organizations was that it just wasn't working. They've all tried. And be it the size or the liberalism of California, they all just gave up at some point. So I figured maybe change just needs to come from the inside. So that's where I got the idea for Golden State Teenage Conservatives, and that's when I kind of pitched the idea to Sam, and we decided to start this.
And so how long had you guys known each other before this happened, or did you have to meet in a library and do code winks?
We met a few months before, last October, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a relatively new friendship, a relatively new organization. How did you find one another? And I mean, are there special places where conservatives hide on campus?
Mutual friends. But so at my school, we have a conservative club there called the Rebel Alliance, which we got from Bill Whittle.
We've had him here.
Yeah, you've had him here. So he's an excellent speaker. And basically, what I've been doing it's been mostly contained in my school, but I've tried to sort of create a space for people in my school who are conservatives to go and express their opinions and be themselves. Because when I was discovering who I was, coming out of the closet as a conservative, I discovered most people weren't very happy with that. So every time I said something horrendously radical, like, people should be allowed to have guns to defend themselves, or people should be able to keep the money that they earn, I would get, bombarded by my fellow students, I would get attacked personally, and it was really an uncomfortable thing. And I knew there had to be other people at my school who felt the same way. And so we started this group at my school to get people to come, and it was a good success. People came, they talked about conservatism, there was ideas, and finally an opposition, rebel ideas being spread in the school. But then I talked to some other people from different schools, such as Michael and someone who goes to Gun High School, and they had similar things.
Gun High School?
Yeah, in Palo Alto.
Two ends.
Two ends. Oh,
Right.
okay.
It's not an offensive name if it has
It's
two
like
ends.
not an NRA-sanctioned school.
No,
It's
they actually hate the NRA there. It's in Palo Alto. But basically I discovered that it wasn't just at my school that people were derided for being conservatives, but it's the entire Bay Area that this is an epidemic. So I reached out to Michael and other people to sort of form a coalition of our groups and give people a place outside of school who, if they don't have this infrastructure in their schools, to go and know that they're not alone, and to have a place where they can learn about conservatism, where they can express their ideas, and hopefully get it out to the broader community, so that liberals who grow up with the indoctrinating professors, they grow up in the liberal families, and they never hear this point of view, that maybe some high school students who haven't thought about politics, can start to hear that maybe there's another voice out there.
Mm-hmm. And Bill Whittle is someone who's very good at
Yeah,
articulating that message.
Probably the best communicator. He's actually one of the first conservative commentators I found that helped me formulate my viewpoints. So.
Right.
Really
So have you guys put any thought into, or have you determined even anecdotally, what percentage of your school might be like-minded?
Yeah.
It's not much. I mean, there might be 10 people at my school.
Out of a student body of how many?
About 200.
Okay, so it's still a relatively small school.
Well, 5%, I mean, consider the Bay Area average.
Right.
Well, what you'll find is
Yeah.
that if you're speaking to people about just issues such as, and maybe the solutions are different, what you'll find is the
Right.
numbers are probably much higher
Exactly.
than you
So-
expect, but
Yeah.
they've been beaten into submission.
What I've found is it's probably about maybe 5 or 10% conservative, 30 to maybe 20 to 30% liberal, but the large majority of people aren't anything at all. They don't necessarily pay attention to politics, so they don't have formed opinions. And what I've found that when I've talked to them about issues, that they are more conservative than they are liberal, because conservatism makes sense. So when you present it in a way that it's not about indoctrination, just about the facts, they generally side with the conservatives. So that's another sort of ray of hope I have. Because
But a lot of the time they're afraid to admit it because
Exactly.
there's so much stigmatism associated with being conservative. Because, I mean, if you're conservative, that automatically means that, you support, murdering minorities, you support just spitting on poor people. So
Right.
they're afraid to admit they have a conservative
Exactly.
viewpoint because everyone else is going to judge them for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that you get offended by things like people selling baby parts, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't want to admit that kind of stuff because
It's
Some people find that offensive.
Yeah.
There's too many times that someone's come up to me privately and said, I'm really proud of what you're doing. I really agree with you, but I'm too scared to say anything because I don't want to be isolated. I don't want to be alienated, and I don't want to risk, my popularity and social capital to say what I think.
right.
So it's a lot of backdoorness, it's a lot of private conversations, and we're working on ending the stigma so people can comfortable speaking up, and we'll find that more people are conservative when we do that.
So at least at my school, which is a private Jewish school, the private Jewish schools tend to be the most liberals of any education, type of thing in America. But I found that I've actually really enjoyed myself a lot more after I started my Young Republicans Club, way back when last year, because I could start openly talking about how I felt about politics. I knew that, through forming the club, there would be like 20 other people at my school who would defend me on such things, agree with me on such things, and I think overall it was a very positive experience for me. And there was a lot of negativity back from the administration, from different students at first, but I think with time they just kind of got used to it and just accepted it, and then it was much easier to argue things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what are you doing to broaden your footprint? You talked about putting together infrastructure so that other people could potentially form their own clubs. Are you putting together tools that they can use, agendas, formats? Are you aggressively recruiting? Talk to us.
You want to
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. Well, we are aggressively recruiting. At first, our goal was to just spread from our 3 high schools, because...
Are they all here in the South Bay?
Well, we started out with one in San Francisco, Kahila High School, where he goes to, and Gunn High School, which is a public school in Palo Alto. Since then, we've expanded to, I think, 23 or 20. We have a presence at 23 or 24,
20.
something along those lines in the Bay Area. But very recently, within the past couple of days, we've come in contact with someone who lives in San Diego. And they told us how much they love this organization, how much they want to get involved, but they also said that their school, it's too late for them to form a club at their school. And I
for this school year, or just
for
forever?
this school year?
Yeah,
the way their school year, it's it's unfair towards all clubs, not just his. But if you want to start it past a certain date, you're just not allowed to.
Okay,
right.
They're helping us start a San Diego chapter of Golden State Teenage Conservative. So and in addition to that, we're recruiting among high schools in the Bay Area that already have conservative students, but don't yet have clubs.
Right. And one of the biggest problems we run into that is a lot of people say, well, I really am happy with what you're doing here, I'm a conservative, I want to help, but I don't really want to take that fight to the administration, because I know it won't be good for me, because they're not going to let us start a club because they don't think it's justified to have that conservative voice. And so the administration at schools is a big hurdle that a lot of people face. So what we want to do is, if people maybe want to start a club but they don't know how to fight the administration, we can take our experience and our, almost our collective bargaining, to use a liberal term, and to help them create the clubs and to help fight the fights that some people aren't able to do on their own.
And beyond that, sorry to interrupt you, beyond that, oftentimes what people need, beyond more than just, I just don't want to deal with the school, is they're just lazy.
Right.
Which sounds bad, but sometimes if you just give someone a little bit of a push and just be like, hey, you should start a club, we'll help you every step of the way. We'll help you with, we'll do things for you if you need that, with the administration, with the school, with students. Oftentimes that's all they need. And they're like, well, actually, I know you existed and you were promoting this before, but you reached out one-on-one to me, so, maybe I'll look into this more. Maybe I will start a club after all.
Right. And so the question I would have is, when you're talking to these students who are concerned about the administration blocking their club, do these schools have other clubs and it's just the conservatism that they're shy of, or is it there are no clubs on the campus whatsoever anyway?
I mean, you could speak to more.
Yeah, so it's different for every school. A lot of them say, like, there's some schools have a deadline and there's not much you can do about that, but there are others that say, like, there's one political club at the school, but the problem with that is, in the Bay Area, one political club is going to be liberal because most of the people are liberal. So they don't see the justification for it, because they don't think that there needs to be a specific conservative club, because they don't necessarily, either they don't understand that conservatives are marginalized the way we are, or they want to keep them marginalized.
Right.
And I find a lot of administrations use these sort of excuses to sort of scoot around the problem that they don't want a conservative voice on campus. Because even at my own school, I've had a lot of things, taken down because of they don't want political messaging, but they're fine with handing out Planned Parenthood stickers and, like, Save the Earth environmental stuff, but they refuse to hand out anything conservative. So there's a lot of hypocrisy and excuses made by administration to shut us down.
Just a side note, you may want to reach out to one of the not-for-profit conservative legal foundations who might be able to at least give you a letter that you can hand out, like Pacific Legal or something like that.
Another issue that you see with the schools sometimes, with the administrations, that this actually hasn't happened to me personally, but I know of it happening, is that they have rules against political clubs, against clubs of an ideological nature. They just choose to ignore these rules when it's the Planned Parenthood Club or the Save the Earth Club. But then you want to start the conservative club, not even a Republican club, a conservative club. All of a sudden they remember these rules exist and they close down your club. Well, why aren't you closing down the other clubs? Well, they've been here for a while, they already exist, they're helping.
Okay. So there are really Planned Parenthood clubs?
Not at my school, but...
It's not a club, but they're like passing out Planned Parenthood stickers, and we
the GSA does this stuff a lot.
Yeah, the Gay Straight Alliance is another club that supports these things.
Okay.
But yeah.
So, if as you've been reaching out to other schools, what has been the biggest kind of aha moment for you as to the things that are going on? Is it better or worse at places outside of the Bay Area, or have you just been really focused on the Bay Area?
We focus mostly on the Bay Area.
But we are trying to expand out of it.
We're
But
trying to move throughout the whole state. But
being a new organization, we kind of have to focus on developing ourselves first instead of spreading too thin all over the state and having nothing to show for it.
Okay. Okay, so getting to places where you can geographically pay attention to people if they need it.
And
then opportunistically, if they call from San Diego or Reading or something.
Then we hop on that. But another thing about sort of localization is, in addition to having clubs, what we want to do is create an out-of-school infrastructure where on the weekends we host events and we host debate watch parties where conservatives can have like a place to go outside of school to just really be conservative, where they can hopefully get educated.
In public?
I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet.
We're not that progressive as a society just yet.
Right, but basically create like an extracurricular thing where they can come on the weekends. We went to a rally for the Iran deal. We come to the Conservative Forum. We get people to take some time to think about conservative issues, where they can, instead of having to worry about saying their ideas at school, they can come here, they can be as conservative as they want, they can learn about conservatism, they can hear issues, they can help strategize for activism and things like that.
Okay, great. And so if people wanted to find out more information, what's the best mechanism? Should they reach out to you by email? Do you have a website?
Well, as of now, we have a Facebook page, and we're working on getting a website soon. So, but as of now, the best way to reach us is by email or to our website.
So the Facebook page is Golden State Teenage Conservatives. Is the name of it, and the email.
All one word, no dashes, no dots,
no fancy stuff.
Okay.
And then the email is CaliforniaConservative84@yahoo.com.
Also, no dashes, none of that.
Okay. So one more time for each of them.
All right. Golden State Teenage Conservatives is on Facebook, and CaliforniaConservative84@yahoo.com.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing with us this evening. If you hold on for just a moment, we'll be back after a word from our underwriters, the Conservative Forum.
The Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley began with 20 conservatives meeting at a restaurant in November of 2003. Our mission is to promote the principles of American liberty through education. By 2012, we had grown to over 600 paid members. Our monthly meetings feature well-known and prestigious conservative speakers addressing issues that are critical to our country's very survival. This includes speakers like Victor Davis Hanson, Andrew Breitbart, David Horowitz, and many others. In addition to our monthly meetings, we sponsor a conservative local cable access TV show, The Right Side, covering today's topics. Our Constitution discussion group not only teaches the Constitution, but started our annual essay contest that awards 2 $1,000 scholarships to local high school seniors. We are a virtual clearinghouse for grassroots organizations by providing them with table space at no charge in our exhibit area. There are typically a dozen groups represented. If you are like-minded, join us at our next meeting and become motivated and empowered. Liberty, made in America.
If you kick it down one box, then you can read. Oh, perfect. And welcome back to The Right Side. That was a word from our underwriters, the Conservative Forum. And while we appreciate them tremendously for making this show possible over nearly 4 years now, we are not actually what they're best known for. What they're actually best known for is their speaker series. And normally on the second Tuesday of each month at 7:30 in the evening, they have speakers that are nationally, in some cases internationally known, that come right here into Mountain View at 432 Sterling Road at the IFES Portuguese Hall. And for example, this month in October, David Spady will be speaking. He's with Americans for Prosperity. He has other ventures with Salem Communications. He's a political consultant and is the author of an upcoming documentary. In November, Kurt Schlichter, Army Colonel, trial lawyer, and national commentator for Fox News, Dennis Miller, Hewitt, and others will be speaking. And in December, on the 8th, Thomas Fitton, president of Judicial Watch and the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Corruption Chronicles, will be speaking. If you need more information, you can find it at theconservativeforum.com. And in closing this evening, Yes, we provided you evidence that there's hope for future generations for conservative ideals to continue to prosper and to move forward. You can find out more about the Golden State Teenage Conservatives on Facebook at that very name, Golden State Teenage Conservatives, but also look for them to have websites and other things coming soon. You'll get your updates there at Facebook. So we appreciate you having the time to spend with us this evening. We appreciate you being here to watch and share the brain cells of Sam and Michael. And we look forward to seeing you in person or on the show sometime soon. But if you just can't wait, reach out to us at therightsidetv@gmail.com, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon.